So if you would have asked me a week ago, should we invade Greenland? I'd say absolutely not. But then the vice president's office put out this trailer and I don't know. It's pretty well done.
In the cold silence of the tundra, a bond was born, not from treaties or trade, but from blood and bravery. While Germany controlled Europe, the Nazis set their sights on the Arctic. Greenland became an unwitting combatant, and the United States stepped in, not to conquer, but to protect. In 1943, nearly 1,000 American soldiers with 4 chaplains set sail from New York to Greenland, carrying with them hope, duty, and a quiet fear. But their ship was torpedoed by a Nazi U-boat, and the frigid waters of the North Atlantic became a grave. Those 4 chaplains gave up their life vests, giving their lives so that others might live, to protect America and Greenland. Their sacrifices helped win our freedom, and we will never forget. Together, Americans and Greenlanders stood as sentinels at the top of the world. But today, Greenland faces new threats, from Russian aggression and Chinese expansion. Our shared legacy lives on in every joint mission, every Arctic patrol, every partnership forged in the shadow of melting ice and rising tensions. This is not just history, it is destiny. Now is the time to stand together again. For peace, for security, for the future, America stands with Greenland.
Okay, so this didn't move me all the way into the invasion of Greenland is a good thing. I would say, if anything, I'm more I like Greenland now. I was kind of neutral prior. Seems like good friends that we have there. Anyways, all of this comes amidst the vice president's trip today to the U.S. military base in Greenland. Greenland, of course, being an autonomous territory of Denmark. As he left, this video came out, and we got quite a few clips of the vice president today talking about why Greenland is so important for U.S. national security, what the plans are going forward, and then we'll wrap up with a little pushback, because we're not necessarily all on the same page here. But getting started, I thought it was worth hearing from the vice president himself why Greenland is so important to the defense of the United States.
I think a lot of Americans wonder, why does Greenland matter so much? Why does the mission of this base matter so much to the American people? And I learned a lot about that today myself. Of course, you can read about it in a book, but I saw it up close and personal. And if, God forbid, to my fellow Americans, if a missile was fired from an enemy country or an enemy submarine into the United States, it is the people here before us who would give notice to our brave men and women further south in the United States to let people know what was coming, and, God willing, to try to shoot it down and prepare for it. That's one of the things that we do at installations like this. We know that Russia and China and other nations are taking an extraordinary interest in Arctic passageways and Arctic naval routes, and indeed in the minerals of the Arctic territories. We need to ensure that America is leading in the Arctic, because we know that if America doesn't, other nations will fill the gap where we fall behind. So what you guys do is so critically important. I think a lot of Americans, certainly I, didn't realize it fully until President Trump started talking about the importance of our Arctic mission, about building upon it and ensuring that America can lead in the Arctic for the next generation.
But it wasn't just national defense that Vance focused on here. He's kind of looking at the projection of power as well, talking about how our direct competitors, adversaries, however you want to frame that, Russia and China are on the march and have been for quite a while, and they're continuing to eye the Arctic.
There has been an expansion of the security footprint and the security interest of Russia and China. They're doing what they believe is in their interest. The United States must do what I know is in our interest, which is to make sure that Greenland is safe. If Greenland doesn't have self-determination, if the people of Greenland have their future controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, it's not going to make their lives better off, and most importantly, it's going to make American and world national security, world security, much, much weaker. We in some ways need to wake up. We need to wake up from a failed 40-year consensus that said that we could ignore the encroachment of powerful countries as they expand their ambitions. We can't just bury our head in the sand, or in Greenland, bury our head in the snow and pretend that the Chinese are not interested in this very large landmass. We know that they are. They've taken steps to put Greenland in ridiculous debt traps to invest and exploit the resources here. And we know that they're sending a lot of military resources here. Yes, over The medium term, the United States will meet that challenge. We will put our own resources here. We already have a lot of great resources here, but we know we're going to have to do more to counter some of the nations that we know that we're competitive with.
So there's a bunch of places around the world that are important to U.S. national security. That's not anything new. So I think the big question here is, what is the United States going to do about it? But before diving into some options that the Vice President throws out, a quick thank you to the sponsor of today's video. Did you know that even here in the United States, we block access to certain websites from around the world? It's true. Certain government sites and news outlets from various countries can't be accessed from here in the United States unless you have a VPN. A virtual private network hides your IP address and safeguards your internet connection through an encrypted tunnel. This way, it shields what you do online from anyone looking to exploit your private information, like hackers, internet service providers, advertisers, and government censors. I personally recommend Private Internet Access VPN because browsing the internet without a VPN is like going into the fight without a helmet and body armor. All it takes is one stray round and it's going to be a bad day. PIA is the world's most transparent VPN provider with over 30 million downloads. It has a strict no logs policy backed by multiple court cases, which means that it never stores or tracks your data, so your online activity and personal information stay completely private. PIA VPN also helps you get around regional restrictions. So with one click of a button, you can access the content you want no matter where you are. Just pick up a server of 91 countries and 50 states and you're there. Additionally, PIA VPN works on all platforms. You're talking Windows, Mac OS, Android, iOS, and more. And you can use one subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices at the same time. That's a pretty good setup, but for an even better deal, check out the link in the description for an exclusive 83% off and 4 months free, all with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And of course, thank you to PIA for sponsoring today's video. All right, so one of the routes that the Vice President went was talking about how Greenland will maintain their sovereignty, and he kind of hopes they choose us, suggesting that there's some sort of vote maybe in the future. I'm not certain that's in the cards or planned by any stretch, but here's what the Vice President had to say.
Our message is very simple. Yes, the people of Greenland are going to have self-determination. We hope that they choose to partner with the United States because we're the only nation on earth that will respect their sovereignty and respect their security, because their security is very much our security, as these brave Americans show.
Now, there were some reporters on scene, so one of them asked a pretty good question. Hey, the president himself is making some pretty aggressive claims towards Greenland recently. What exactly does that mean, and how does that tie in with your visit here? And it kind of gives some insight into what this administration is thinking when looking at Greenland. Here we go.
And the president said today that we have to have Greenland. By being here today, are you also conveying that message that the U.S. is very serious in its desire to acquire Greenland?
Well, the president said we have to have Greenland, and I think that we do have to be more serious about the security of Greenland. We can't just ignore this place. We can't just ignore the president's desires, but most importantly, we can't ignore what I said earlier, which is the Russian and Chinese encroachment in Greenland. We have to do more. Now, what the president said in his State of the Union address, and he was very clear about this, is we respect the self-determination of the people of Greenland, but my argument again to them is I think that you'd be a lot better coming under the United States security umbrella than you have been under Denmark's security umbrella. Because what Denmark's security umbrella has meant is effectively they've passed it all off to brave Americans and hoped that we would pick up the tab. We're simply saying to the people of Greenland, when the president says we've got to have Greenland, he's saying this island is not safe. A lot of people are interested in it. A lot of people are making a play. We know that America cares about the security of this island for the sake of the people of Greenland, but also for the sake of the national security interests of the United States of America. So
now, of course, as mentioned previously, Greenland is an autonomous territory of Denmark, so it's not like we can just ignore that NATO ally entirely. So Vance does spend a period of time here talking directly to Denmark, kind of explaining, hey, this is what you did wrong, this is why this isn't good, and this is why the United States has to take the action that we're taking.
There is no amount of bullying, no amount of obfuscating, no amount of confusing the issue. Our message to Denmark is very simple. You have not done a good job by the people of Greenland. You have underinvested in the people of Greenland, and you have underinvested in the security architecture of this incredible, beautiful landmass filled with incredible people. That has to change.
I also wanted to provide kind of the other perspective here, and for that, we're going to go to a clip from CNN. The reason I say other perspective is kind of twofold. First, CNN, you can generally expect to have an alternative view or to push back on any policies from a Republican administration like we have right now. Not all that out of the ordinary. Also, however, in this case, they're showing some polling data, not just from the United States, but also in Greenland to show how this whole, whether it's, I'm kind of exaggerating with the idea of taking Greenland over with military force, but who knows? We always say everything's on the table. Whether it's that all the way up to kind of pressuring Greenland to come more into the U.S. orbit, that's not very popular there or here. Let's give that a look.
Americans, are they into this whole Greenland?
This has got to be one of the most unpopular ideas I've ever heard. I look at the polling day in, day out. The percentage of Americans who are against this, we could throw up on the screen right now. We're looking at about 70% of Americans who say, no, the U.S. should not take over Greenland. That is more Americans who were for the impeachment and removal of Richard Nixon by the end of his presidency. This is uniformly unpopular. Even only half of Republicans support it.
And what do people in Greenland think?
Yeah, what do people in Greenland think? Because I think this is sort of the big question, right? What do people in Greenland think? If you think the American people were against it, take a look at this. We managed to get a poll of the people on the beautiful land of Greenland. And what do Greenlanders think? Look at this no percentage who are against this idea. 85%. Just 6% say yes. To give you an idea of how low 6% is, if you took a poll of Americans and say, do you believe we actually landed on the moon? About 10% of Americans think we faked the moon landing. So fewer Greenlanders are for the U.S. taking over Greenland than Americans who actually believe that we did not land on the moon.
All right, so overall, I personally thought that was pretty helpful, hearing all that from the vice president and trying to follow what's going on here. It's been confusing, to say the least, and I don't feel like I've seen a real clear rationale or explanation as to why we're taking such an immediate interest in Greenland. And it's not just that we're interested in Greenland, but we're coming across pretty aggressive to our NATO ally that is Denmark. So I think from the first time this topic was really raised, either on the campaign trail or shortly after Trump came into office, this to me was the first overall encapsulation of kind of laying out the administration's stance and kind of suggesting what could be coming. So we'll have to keep an eye on Greenland. That's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time.